Death is imminent. You, me, my cutest cats, hell, even Reggie will not live forever. As sad as that sounds, sometimes you just gotta embrace death, you know. Give it a nice old pat on the back and make something nice out of it. Take it out for dinner before it takes you out. Convince it Game of Thrones is actually a pretty bad show. Or, you know, just make a video game out of it. Grimm's Hollow is an RPGmaker game that's readily available on Steam. For free. Aside from a few beta testers and the handful of individuals that composed the soundtrack, the game has pretty much been solely developed by a student going by the name of Ghost Hunter. Now, if I've learned anything from playing RPG Maker games made by a handful of people or less, it's that they tend to outdo AAA $60 games with hundreds of people working on it on far too many occasions. And this little adventure right here easily outperforms a bunch of garbage released at full price this year. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Get the hell out of here before I start a monologue, okay? So, yeah, Grimm's Hollow is a game about death. Except it's fun and cute. I mean, just look at how adorable these characters look. Grimm's Hollow takes place in an area that's essentially located in between life and death, a void world that is owned by the one and only Grim Reaper. Hence the game's name, of course. You play through the game as a girl called Lavender, a girl who's died together with her brother Timmy for reasons that aren't explained until the very last cutscene of the game. You randomly wake up in a bed surrounded by Reapers, with them essentially throwing a welcoming party for you, which is kind of adorable. The big boss himself hops in for a bit, complaining how the Reaper stole his balloons, after which he brings Lavender the shocking news. She's dead. However, her spirit isn't ready to move on to the afterlife just yet, and that's exactly what Grimm's Hollow exists for. Because your spirit isn't ready to move on yet, you've been temporarily turned into a Reaper. Your task now is to reap ghosts in order to have them move on to the afterlife, and by collecting their spirit energy, you will eventually be able to move on yourself as well. And yeah, that's essentially the core idea of this game. Attempting to complete your spirit in order to finally be at peace. It's a pretty grim concept brought in a very light-hearted way, which is a perfect setting for a game like this. One moment the game is being introspective with Lavender reflecting on the relationship with her mother, and then the next moment some random Reaper explains how a balloon is his new best friend, after which the balloon goes like,
I got so many things I gotta do. Alright, bye.
With every NPC and object having some sort of unique descriptions and dialogue, this adventure truly is a mix of serious reflections on death and the afterlife, and jokes that really lighten the mood. In a way, you could say it's a really grim but hollow story. Oh, okay, it's not really hollow. I had to make that pun, okay? Speaking of hollow, there really isn't a whole lot to Grimm's Hollow. Since, well, it's only a 3-hour adventure. You battle some ghosts in turn-based battles, use their spirit energy to upgrade your skill tree, and beat a big boss at the end. It seems oh so basic, but what Ghost Hunter did with this classic RPG-styled game is actually very, very good and fits a short game like this incredibly well. And all of this starts with the aesthetics of the game. The game takes place in a beautiful world that's full of shades of purple, blue and black. I think this color palette is perfect since it both brings the feelings of death and the afterlife across while simultaneously looking adorably spooky and cute. The world kind of feels like what death would be like if it was fluffy, if that makes any sense. You spend most of your time making your way through these caves for story-driven purposes, and their minimalistic yet detailed art style just gives off such a vibe. It feels incredibly cozy, yet eerie at the same time, and that's exactly the vibe you want to get across in a game about the afterlife. You got a couple of flowers here and there, some water, an occasional ladder, and some lost ghosts wandering around. That's pretty much it. And yet, every area, every room has its own distinct feeling to it. It's really, really cool. And then, I haven't even talked about the overworld sprites and the cutscene character portraits either. Both the overworld and cutscene character sprites have these adorable chibi art styles and are such a joy to look at. Lavender, Timmy, the Grim Reaper, Mr. McBradface, they all have these rather cute and memorable designs. And then there's the inclusion of hand-drawn images as well that look absolutely gorgeous. These images only appear a handful of times, but when they do, they add so much to the aesthetic the game is trying to get across. You can tell they've been carefully drawn, and especially the ones that appear in the different endings the game has to offer really add to the emotional substance that's involved with every ending. I'd love to show you each and every single one of them, but, you know, spoilers. All in all, this game's visuals are just a vibe. A Friday night, rainy weather while gaming type vibe that you just can't get enough of. And the same really goes for the classic RPG gameplay, albeit as imperfect as it is. In order to complete your spirit, you'll be collecting spirit energy in the form of a classic RPG, in which you do classic RPG stuff. You'll be fighting ghosts in these turn-based battles with a variety of unlockable moves and upgradable skills that can be unlocked with the experience, or spirit energy for that matter, you get from every encounter. It's really the most basic RPG setting. Beat enemy, advance skill tree. The game doesn't really take any risks in that regard. But yet the battles themselves are just an absolute blast. There's a set amount of encounters that are just roaming around the areas in the form of these little ghost figures you're supposed to reap for spirit energy. Now, while this means there aren't any random encounters and you could avoid most of them if you wanted to, for the sake of story progression, I'd advise to literally fight every single one of them. And why wouldn't you? The battles are really cool in the first place. The ghosts you're supposed to reap in these battles look just as cool, if not cooler, as the rest of the game's visuals. They're these ghostly, horrific, but yet adorable designs that truly embody the chaos of the afterlife. But what makes these enemies as outstanding as they are is everything they have to offer in battle. Every battle starts off in a rather standard way. As soon as the battle starts, a timer starts ticking down in the bottom left corner. Depending on the speed stat, either you or the opposing ghost will get to attack first. You'll always start out with Lavender's basic side swing, a timing-based attack controlled by pressing the down arrow key that does more damage the closer you are to the midpoint. It's after executing this attack that the battles really become fun, because this basic attack charges the
special gauge.
I just love the variety of mana-based moves this game has to offer. There's just an arsenal of tactical moves to choose from. Poison damage every turn, sleep or flinch for a set amount of turns, hit a specific enemy type for more damage, hit all enemies for 3/4 of the regular damage. There's just a bunch of cool shit to choose from. And the enemies make you use these different specials too. Like there's the shield enemy that takes more damage from the pierce attack, and this clingy enemy will just resummon his partner unless you use the multiple target attack, which is a brilliant idea for an enemy, by the way. These different attacks are all unlocked by using the spirit energy you obtain from the battles. This spirit energy doubles as both the currency for the bakery, where you will buy adorable baked goods to heal you, as well as the points needed to fill Lavender's spirit. I never really ended up needing to purchase any healing items, since the game itself provides more than enough items itself anyway. They're scattered around the areas, obtained by waking up lost reapers in the cave, and they even drop rather frequently as a battle reward as well. With the game's only items being healing items, the shop is more of a luxury than a necessary mechanic. Either way, the other usage for spirit energy is unlocking new skills, aka completing Lavender's spirit. The UI for this is like my favorite thing ever, since the screen just goes zoop, and you've arrived at the skill tree. Truly a fantastic transition. Either way, the upgradable skills come in the form of the aforementioned attacks and stats such as attack, defense, special, speed, and health. Each of them has multiple levels to upgrade, and once you max out every single one of them, Lavender Spirit is complete. Now, you might recall me advising you to fight every single encounter for the sake of story progression, and the reason for this is because Ghost Hunter made a rather clever decision. You see, this game has 4 endings based on 2 conditions: completing or failing to complete your spirit, and winning or losing the final battle. Even if you fight every single encounter, you will not get enough spirit energy to upgrade every single skill. This means the likelihood of you completing your spirit before the final battle is rather low, unless you like revisit areas and rematch the enemies in there. The reason this is clever developing is because a player is more likely to achieve every ending this way. If you complete your spirit before the final battle, you essentially lock yourself out of 2 endings, and you'll have to replay the entire thing again if you made a save with the complete spirit. The grinding to complete your spirit after getting the first 2 endings is super marginal, and it spawns you right before the final battle upon selecting retry. So the experience is pretty much flawless and never even gets close to feeling tedious. Now, while every skill takes a bunch of spirit energy to upgrade, they tend to say the best things in life are free. My favorite special move in battle is the Observe skill, which costs 0 mana and is available from the get-go. The option is rather straightforward, but it adds so much to the enemies themselves. It shows their stats, which is pretty useful, but more importantly, this option provides a character description, which explains why they are what they are. I had so much fun reading these, and these descriptions really glue the character's appearance, gimmicks, and attacks together. Take the aforementioned Clingy Ghost for example. Clingy is afraid of people leaving them, and thus he will endlessly respawn defeated spirits to prevent him from feeling alone. Or like these Heart Ghosts that are so attached to each other that they keep healing each other out of
Love.
Killing off one of them makes their color and attacks change, with its description saying it's going through a hard egg, thanks to you. I literally could keep going for an hour about how much I like the ideas for these enemies. All of them have their own little stories with corresponding gimmicks and attacks that are all very memorable. Self-destructing 3 turns ghosts, multiplying ghosts, powering up allies ghosts, they're all equally fantastic. Look, I could go on a tear right now about how the evading mechanics feel super unresponsive at times, or how the fights are too easy, but the truth is, I honestly don't fucking care. Yeah, a simple evading mechanic where you just have to press down once the blue bar reaches this square could have felt a little more precise, and the input lag certainly wasn't needed. Yeah, maybe the game should have made me sweat a little more so I'd actually use the item shop, but in the context of this game, it honestly doesn't matter. The game is more so about the story, about the themes of death and the afterlife it's trying to tell through its story, environments and enemies respectively. I never really got in trouble in any of the fights, but I didn't realize the fights were this easy until I started writing this script. The themes and ideas presented here just simply overshadow the fact that the fights are too easy and turn it into nothing more than a slight inconvenience. If Ghost Hunter can be arsed, I'd definitely like to see a difficulty mode added to the game for the more
hardcore RPG players.
But I'd understand if they want to move on to newer things. I don't really talk about a game's soundtrack in these reviews, unless they really stand out to me. Grimm's Hollow soundtrack is one of those worth mentioning. Composed by Ned Wesley and Bruno Buclisi, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, the game delivers some really good tunes into my eardrums. it really adds to the whole spooky but adorable vibe the game is trying to get across. It kind of reminds me of the soundtracks in walking simulators like Journey or Voyage. Just these chill, lo-fi-ish tracks that I could listen to for hours without getting bored. You're just walking around, making your way to the next section, while the music just goes like... And then you get into an encounter, and the music goes like... This battle theme is definitely my favorite of the bunch, but every single soundtrack is just a pleasure to listen to. Music changes in each of the 3 major cave areas you visit, and this includes the battles as well, which is a really nice touch. Certain game series could learn a thing or two from that. I think the soundtrack just ties the entire game together perfectly and is like the cherry on top of a really enjoyable game. Grimm's Hollow isn't some major adventure with the sickest features of all time produced by an enormous company. But it's a game that stems from the passion and ideas of a single student. As a hardcore RPG fan, I can imagine it's easy to be very critical of this game. But as a video game enjoyer, this was a game I couldn't put down before I had seen all of the endings. Now, as for those endings themselves, I have decided to be
a giant prick.
I just can't get myself to spoil the endings of a 3-hour adventure. Not only would this take up like half of the video, but like, come on, the game is 3 hours. Even if you're the most hardcore RPG hater, this game is incredibly easy to digest, and the endings are most definitely worth your time. Just go play the damn game, man. All in all, Grimm's Hollow went above and beyond what I expected a free game to be. For the price of nothing but your time, you get an adorable looking game, a really emotional yet light-hearted story about the afterlife, a fun and creative battle system both in terms of enemies and your own moves, and a baller-ass soundtrack that I occasionally put on when I go for my daily walks, because it's just that relaxing to listen to. What more can I really ask from a free game? If you've got a bit of time in your hands and you enjoy playing video games, there really isn't a reason not to play this. Just sit back, relax, and reap away.